one gig where we had all that, and then the guy rolls up to the gig in a Honda Civic, like taking out the rental PA, and it was like he like rented it at Guitar Center.
Yeah, he like picked it up. He picked it up like 30 minutes before he got there. Like. What are you up to these days?
Chilling. Yeah, I've been basically this last week was I was in Pennsylvania visiting the folks for a few days, and since I've gotten back, it's been a bit nuts with just random gigs and teaching. So the usual. So how about you?
Yeah, same, more of the same. Trying to write some music with a 50% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd say it's more than that. At least for you, it is.
Yeah, well, that's because I methodically plan out everything that I do. I'd like to play more jazz gigs, but it's hard to get. I feel like it's hard to get jazz gigs, or is it just me because I overthink stuff too much? Like
well, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, post-pandemic, things are starting to pick up again, but it is true that there are less venues to do.
Oh, you're one of those post-pandemicers, huh?
Yeah.
Post-pandemic?
Post-apocalypse pandemic. So, yeah, I think what it is now is probably what it's going to be for a while in terms of the state of things being open and whatnot. But because it's not going away, that's for sure. But yeah, it's like the one good thing is like a lot of venues have opened that are, kind of not a result of the pandemic, but like they kind of wouldn't be happening if it weren't for the pandemic. Like there's a venue in LIC. There's actually a couple places in LIC near me that have outdoor gigs.
I saw all the breweries and like wine bars and stuff suddenly have like Ari Honig and like what else did I see? Like Chico, I can't pronounce his last name. Some sick guitar player, and I feel like I didn't see that. I didn't see that
down at Fifth Hammer.
Yeah, Fifth Hammer is doing all those now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not very luxurious. It's just like the one time I saw Ari play with Jeffrey Keyser, I think it was Danton Bowler on bass, and it was like an upright piano on the sidewalk. But it's like people are finding ways to make music happen. And I think like before the pandemic, I used to have this vibe. Like if I was playing like a restaurant gig or a bar gig, I'm like, oh man, it's just like I'm playing at a bar, whatever, And now like those gigs have really been becoming something. Like people are trying to turn gigs like that if they can, if the owners are cool and like if it's a background music gig, it's a background music gig. There's nothing you could do about it. But like kind of making those gigs into a scene, I
wonder why that is. Like why is it kind of fun to play those gigs all of a sudden?
I don't know. Yeah, I think the pandemic, I mean, first of all, like there was a year where there weren't any gigs happening at all. So
I was going to say, I think it's mostly people are like let's not take this for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be that, and it could be it could just be that there's less venues, like 55 Bar's gone and Cornelia Street's gone. So it's like, you have to play where you can play. And I think people are realizing, it's really about like, getting people there and kind of making something out of these gigs versus just, the name on the banner of the club.
Yeah. Do you think like that way of thinking has changed? Like it used to be, this guy is playing at this coveted place or yeah, like I feel like it used to be, see this guy at this coveted place, and now it's like everyone seems to have found like this comfort in just playing wherever. Like it used to be Like, or maybe this is just my perception, but I feel like the guys that were playing at a lot of those places at one point, the tune has now shifted to where they've kind of said, ah, fuck it. Like, we're not curing cancer. Like, if I'm going to play on the side of the street, like, what difference does it make? Like, we're all just playing music.
I was just talking to somebody about that a few weeks ago, like all of a sudden people that I haven't, that were like really selective about taking gigs. Like I've been seeing their names a little bit more on places you wouldn't think. I mean, it's not like there aren't those. I mean, those venues are still around, the Blue Note, the Vanguard, I'm talking about like jazz specific.
Yeah. Like those places probably won't. That's probably not going to change.
Yeah. But yeah, like
the divey spots.
Yeah, they're still there, but it seems like people are more willing to do, like these gigs at like pop up venues. There also has been a lot of grants since the pandemic. Like I know some of these venues operate partially from some grants that have been set up, and I think a lot of that's been established over the pandemic. So, like if you won't leave the house for less than $100, sometimes it's hard for, a small dive bar to cover that, so some of them are like either funded or supplemented by some grants. I don't know much about them, but,
damn, I want to get a grant.
Like, yeah, me too.
Like, hey, the dive bars that I play at don't pay enough. Can I get a grant?
Yeah.
It sounds kind of nice.
I applied for one. I didn't get it, and it was like, just apply for this grant. You don't have to send any music or just tell me like, your age, where you're from, and then we'll determine whether you get money or not. So I think it was a lottery.
Yeah. I think Dana Malseptic was telling me about some grant when we were doing the no band recording session. We were driving in the car, and what he was explaining to me was along these lines, like some way for smaller venues to be able to pay to have like freelance musicians come in and do a gig for not peanuts. For some, like, $100 per person or something like that. I completely have not thought of any of this since the last time him and I spoke or looked it up or anything, but I guess I'll sync with him and find out what that was, because I'm curious now.
Maybe it was Keyed Up. I know they...
Oh, that was the one, Keyed Up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've been funding a lot of stuff. I don't know how it works exactly, but... yeah, and the U.S. has been really shit when it comes to support for artists. Like Europe and some other places there's a lot more resources. Like I think somebody told me, like, yeah, I don't know if this is true, but if you're from Switzerland and you have a project and one other member of the band is also Swiss, like the government will pay for you to like record a record and do a tour. So,
damn.
Yeah. I haven't actually looked that up, but I just heard that somewhere, so could be fake news, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think Europe has definitely been a little more friendly with the arts, especially for government programs and funding of teaching it in the schools and what have you. Find a grant to record the next Noah and Ever Forthright records. That'd be nice.
It seems like that would be... I mean, we know a couple bands in Canada. And the last time I spoke to some of them, they said they were getting like some money.
Oh, really?
For doing tours. Yeah. I don't want to say their names because I don't want to be like thrown under the bus or getting my information wrong. But I'm pretty sure Canada has some kind of thing where, should we pull up Google again? Canadian.
Yeah, I would imagine, like, I really haven't done any touring since the pandemic, but I would imagine with gas prices being what they are and everything, doing a van and trailer tour has got to be really tough right now. And plus, there's the added element of, if you're doing a tour and one person in the band gets COVID, you got to eat 5 days worth of gigs, or find a sub or I mean, I guess with metal, you have the luxury of just throwing somebody in a backing track. So, but yeah, that's like kind of an added stress. Like I know I've had a few friends on tours come through New York, and I've reached out to them just to like hang. And some of them were in fairly large bands, and they're like, yeah, we have like a total COVID bubble, where, they're just
we can't see anyone but the four of us or something.
Yeah, like the four of them and the roadies, like they had to really be conscious of that because, otherwise, you could tank a tour just from one member of the band getting COVID. So
yeah, it's like I haven't been a full-time musician really ever, and
you were though, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess so. Like
for a few years, I remember you were really, doing it full time, So
yeah,
in the thick of it.
But it's crazy how hard it is. Like,
yeah, we're some crazy motherfuckers for doing this.
It's so.
Can I swear? Is that all right?
No,
I just did. You can bleep it out.
This is on the Catholic. This is on the Catholic local
channel.
The local Scarsdale, Westchester Catholic
evangelical. Nice. Yeah, they're. Yeah. We're pretty crazy for doing this in a way. It's like, the numbers don't make any sense, and it's like.
The cost of like a bandwagon is. These are numbers that someone had given me for a tour that they were looking into possibly doing that they didn't do. They were doing the research though, and contacted Bandwagon for a quote, and like, okay, yeah, I don't remember the duration, but the quote was like $16,000 for the van, and then all the shit you need, all the gear, and you can't really not travel with a sound guy if you're gonna play loud metal.
Yeah, some people are doing it now though, just because they can't make it happen otherwise. I played a gig recently where I was an opener, just playing with the opener local band, and both bands were pretty high production. I mean, they weren't metal per se, but they were aggressive music, and they didn't have a sound guy, which that's kind of,
I think it depends. I think it depends on the layers. Like whenever Forthright was playing shows, and we had like 17 layers of keyboards and harmonized vocals, and on top of that, you had a live keyboard player on stage, bass, 2 guitars, a singer, saxophone, drums. Like and
then remember the one gig where we had all that, and then the guy rolls up to the gig in a Honda Civic, like taking out the rental PA, and it was like he like rented it at Guitar Center.
Yeah, he like picked it up. He picked it up like 30 minutes before he got there. Like I don't know the PA wattage. Like what's like a low PA wattage?
They were like it was like
watts?
two 15-inch, maybe not even. It was like two 15-inch.
Yeah, and we were the super progressive band at the time, not touring with guitar cabinets. So our entire show sounded like it was coming out of like computer monitors.
It was like a drum solo, basically. Yeah, I think we weren't at that level yet. Maybe if we toured like another couple years, we would have gotten there. But some venues were cool with that. But
I'm pretty sure people heard like the actual plucking of the guitars louder than what was coming out of the monitors.
Yeah. Well, they totally expected, like that was one of those shows where they just expected like, oh yeah, we'll just, throw a vocal mic or two in the PA, and then that's it, because they have cabs, and then we show up with
and say, oh no, we don't do that. We're all digital. We don't do cabs. They're like, all right, well, you guys are gonna sound like dog shit.
Yeah, I don't know why we made our lives difficult like that.
Yeah, we made our lives pretty difficult. Yeah, but if you're gonna do that, you need your own sound guy. But I mean, my whole thinking with the Noah band was just no backing tracks. Let's just keep it so simple. I mean, also I noticed that just in writing music again, um, having bass, drums, and like one other part, and that's it, sounds so good.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, like all like art within limitations. Like I'm not just talking music, but I mean, all forms of art have a certain set of limitations that they work within. And if you just say like, okay, I'm writing for this band, and I can't add that layer, I can't do this. It's like kind of opens you up creatively, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. If when you have a little box to work in, it definitely helps. It also allows you to make decisions quicker. You can be really inefficient if you jump into something in a vacuum and you just say, okay, write something.
Yeah.
It helps. I mean, you've already kind of at that. No one does that. No one says, okay, write something. Well, I don't know what no one does. I'm not going to say that. So it's always someone doing something. But, if you're writing some music, you've already decided at least what genre you're going to write, right? You've already decided what your instrumentation is going to be. Probably you didn't even have to consciously do it. You did. Like if you're going to write a song, you're not going to suddenly be like, oh, you know what this song needs? It needs tambourine and timpani. Like you probably don't. You kind of know your instrumentation before you start writing.
That's true. I guess that's kind of one new thing with the digital, the world of digital computers is that you can really write anything that's on your mind, because you can find a sound anywhere and there's an unlimited amount of tracks. The Beatles had 4 to 8, and that's it. They had those tracks. They had to work with them. But, and like, when they teach composition, they always say like, okay, this is how to write for an orchestra. This is the transposition of every instrument. This is how to write for a big band, small group. But now with computers, it's like, you can throw anything in there and somehow make it work. So it's probably nice to just say like, okay, I have a 4-piece band and that's it.
Yeah, don't fuck with the formula.
Yeah.
Like going into this, you've said you're not going to do backing tracks, so don't even think about writing a synth part.
I think a lot of people try to recreate that live, though. Like you see a lot more bands nowadays that have like the guitar player also has a synth, the bass player has a bass synth. Everybody has that fucked up floor tom in the front of the stage. You know what I'm talking about? Like every indie band, the singer has to have a floor tom. I don't know what they do with it, but
Like, he's just getting bored. They played so many shows, this guy felt like he needed a floor tom.
Yeah, I just need a floor tom to hit shit. It's like you're not a real indie band until you got the floor tom on the front of the stage. It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
But man, like that whole world from a business side, economics of touring and, like we were talking about that before.
Oh yeah, it kind of veered off.
Yeah, like that's like, I don't know. I still don't really understand the economics of that world and that ecosystem. I'm mainly a jazz guy and a freelance guy. And, my knowledge of the music business is like usually like, oh, we're doing this gig and it pays X amount of dollars. See you there, whereas like, touring with the band is like, okay, the venue has like a, I don't know, $300 guarantee. And then we might sell some t-shirts. We might not. And then
you leave there and you're still like, why can't we afford dinner?
Yeah.
Like I just played a gig before this tour at some like a winery, and we were each paid $300. How come there were 150 people here tonight? We sold 14 t-shirts and we still can't afford dinner.
Oh man. Yeah.
That I don't understand. I don't understand either. Like the metal prog bands doing daily or near daily shows where everyone's paying $20+ to get in, and somehow everyone is still like barely making ends meet. But I could play at the restaurant down the street and walk away with like over $100.
Yeah, I mean, I think original music is a lot more difficult, in general. Like I've been playing recently with some artists in town, not jazz, but like, like original songs, playing like a half-hour set of original songs. And yeah, it's just generally like you're usually the band leader pays out of pocket, because the venues don't really pay that much, I don't think. So, but yeah, like the world of covers and events, that's a whole different world. It's like functional music, so to speak, weddings or playing like, like covers in a bar or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, that's also people are spending more. Well, no, people buy booze and stuff at like rock shows as well. I mean, it makes
also there's not like 8 bands on a bill. That's another thing. Metal shows, just like there's just so many bands, and I guess you have to spread. You have to spread the wealth.
It's a lot of like each band is playing a 20 to 45 minute set, and this is gonna be 4 bands. There's a lot of people to pay. Where you can have a jazz trio playing 2 hour-and-a-half sets, and that eats up 3 hours of some evening, and everyone's restaurant bill is like $150 plus over the course of 3 hours. I mean, that economically makes a lot more. It's when you look at it like that, it's obvious why like a jazz trio band playing for 3 hours at a restaurant would walk away with more money than a bunch of bands on a tour package, like a bunch of rock bands.
And that was one of the things that was really hard for me with touring metal anyway, was, like I didn't get into music to get rich. I got into music because I really like playing, and, like you do like these crazy drives and load ins and load outs, and then you play a half-hour set and you're done for the day, whereas like, in a jazz group, you really get to play typically, you get at least the full set, if not, play a few sets a night. So, that half hour goes by real quick.
Yeah. And then it's just working or, loading out and driving and loading in. And it kind of feels like you never stop working, but you're only playing the drums for 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
It's strange.
Yeah, and it's the same. Well, we mixed up our sets, which was cool, but most bands don't. Most bands is like you play the same 30 minutes of music every night, and yeah, that's what the gig is. But yeah, I like being able to play, mixing it up a little bit, like in an improvised music scenario, or even like in, I don't know, a non-tracked out band. There's going to be things that are different that happen every night, whereas if you're playing with tracks, it's more or less going to be the same. I mean, it's actually kind of similar to like playing a Broadway show, where you're like doing the
exact same thing.
Yeah, or a pop gig,
yeah. It makes sense though if you need to like, crush it for 20, 30 minutes and get off stage, know that your set is going to be exactly 20 something minutes long, so that the next band could come on. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I wonder why, like, going back to what you said before, like, I wonder why it's, the money in a metal band is, at least starting out. I don't know about like bands that are established, but
I have no context into what it is when things are going right. I really have no idea. Because there's big venues that metal bands are playing. I would imagine they're making a good chunk of money, right?
I would think, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like going to college, right? Like you make a financial investment, and then years later you hope that it pays off, and you're a metal band and you eat shit for a number of years, and then you come out the other side of it, and then all of a sudden you're crushing. Like, I think I read somewhere that Meshuggah said they weren't making any money until like the 2000s, or something like that. And they were a band since like 1986, something like that. So yeah, it's like, you take your 4 years with a band, and you go on the road, and you take a loss, or you just really rough it for a few years, and then next thing you know, you're crushing it and doing a headlining tour. But yeah, it's a lot of faith to have in a project. You just don't know,
yeah,
what can happen, unless you're totally in charge of everything.
And yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to have a band, there's a lot of people doing it. There's so many bands now. There's like when we were putting out music, when we were writing music and putting it on like MySpace and stuff in like 2009.
Wow.
It kind of felt like, oh my God, this is like so cutting edge. No one is writing this kind of music, and I guess it kind of was at the time, but since then, there's just so many bands now, and there's so many great players too. I mean, maybe they were always there, and now thanks to like Instagram and stuff, it's a little bit more. It's like surfaced how many there are now.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great musicians, which which makes me think that the music part is the least difficult of this whole thing. Like learning to play your instrument is actually not that hard. If you have a vision into what you want your sound to be, like not everyone has to learn how to play jazz. Like you can, chances are if you're practicing jazz, you're doing it because you want some kind of, you want to round out your skills. You want it to influence your sound somewhat, but not everyone. I mean, I practice jazz like crazy, but the music that I write is not jazz. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But yeah, my point is that the actual practicing and getting good at your instrument part is not that difficult. It's everything else, like your branding and your commitment to just social media and sticking with it year after year after year. And if it's something that you and I have probably learned, it's that consistency is more important than probably just about everything else. Like,
yeah, I do know some people that are especially gifted in the business side of things, but I think the reality is if you don't have something that people want to listen to, all that doesn't really matter, like you could be the best businessman in the world, but if your music isn't happening, like you're not really going to grab an audience. Like I think there still is something to be said for just the music kicking ass and kind of word of mouth happening, and if it's good, people are going to find out about it to some level. Like maybe you're not going to be famous, but I would think that you'd probably at least have a cult following somewhere. I mean, I think, yeah, the business side of it and the social media side is important, but
is that enough for anyone though? Like I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Like, is having your small cult following what any musician really wants?
Yeah, well, just yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one problem that social media has really
kind of created.
Yeah, it's like external motivation versus internal. Like I'm doing this for the likes, I'm doing this for the clicks, I'm doing it for popularity. Then
it makes it really difficult to be happy with what you've accomplished.
Yeah, and it's so surface level. Like the music that I listen to that I really that I'm really drawn to, you need to listen to it a lot to get to the bottom of it. And like listening to a record like 100 times, and every time you listen to it, it gets better. That's definitely disappeared with the social media thing. Everything is very surface level, kind of bringing it down to 30-second clips. if that, 10-second clips.
Yeah. Wait, you're saying that like the music itself, like a track, used to be something you could listen to over and over again for years?
It still can be. I'm just saying, like, the process is different now with social media. You know, like we're it's like this instant dopamine thing that has been really you know, that's kind of what the currency of Instagram and TikTok, you know, to get your attention for 10 seconds and then move on. And then, you know, some people make an entire career out of that now. And, you know, I'm not, you know, not faulting them. It's like everybody's doing their thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But
it is different.
It's different, you know. I mean, I think that there still is a lot of music out there that you need to, you know, sit with and digest. And maybe that just doesn't translate on a 30-second Instagram clip. You have to sit with it for a while. I mean, there's one band I was listening to. This is a few years ago. I don't want to say their name, but they were like a YouTube sensation. Well, I don't know. That might be a little bit exaggerating, but they were famous on YouTube. And then they released a record. And the record just sounded like a bunch of like 30-second Instagram clips kind of smushed together. You know, it was like the whole record was just like level 10 intensity the whole way.
The entire time.
And it was just like, I'm like, that was the first time I ever realized like some stuff really translates well to the internet that doesn't, you know, in like a long form listening situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think for me, the most rewarding thing, going back to what you said earlier about like having a cult following, is that enough? Like for me, the most rewarding thing is the music itself. You know, like if I'm not having fun playing, you know, that's, you know, I really are not interested in doing it. I mean, unless I mean, of course, I do gigs that I don't want to do because I make a living doing this. But
yeah. And to be clear, the reason I asked that is mainly just I just think it's a good thing to mention. Like it's just a good thing to talk about. I don't
for sure.
You know,
yeah, but it's like, you know, I think the cult following, it's like, you know, going back to that internal motivation. Like if it's like, if you're playing the music that you really want and there's just a small amount of people that really enjoy it, I think that's actually really rewarding rather than, you know,
then rather
something people don't want to hear, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, depends on who you are and what you're trying to do with your music. If you know, if you're an artist and you suddenly go from 5,000 listeners to 1 million listeners, you probably changed up the formula a little bit, which means that if you want to keep those 1 million listeners, you probably have to stick to that new formula, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You know, like if I were to take my music and suddenly turn it on its head and make it be, you know, more, I don't know, like soulful and R&B, I would probably get a new chunk of listeners. I may lose some in the process, but yeah.
There's a lot of examples of bands that have had a hit song and one hit wonders, you know, or just bands that have had a hit song that doesn't really reflect what the majority of their music sounds like. You know, people buy the record and they're like, what's this other shit? You know, I want more songs like that, you know? So, yeah, I mean, that happens too, where some people just strike gold and then don't really capitalize on it. Or they're just like, oh, we had that one song, we're just going to do our thing now.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan, you know, if you go see Bob Dylan play, he's not going to play any of his classic shit. He's going to play all of his new stuff, you know. It's like, no, I moved on. I'm not playing that anymore. You know?
Yeah, like I know it worked over the years, and but I wonder if he, I guess he enjoys playing it to a degree. Like I wonder if he's playing those songs because he enjoys playing those songs, or because he knows that that's going to keep on paying the bills, and those are the songs that people are going to turn up for.
Yeah, he doesn't play those songs. You know, he doesn't play any of not that he like had hits per se, but you know, he doesn't play any of his classic tunes at his shows.
Oh, that's what you meant. I
Yeah, yeah,
interpreted the other way around.
yeah. It's the opposite. You know, he knows people are going to show up, but he's not playing. You know, uh, the songs
Yeah.
he wrote in the '70s.
Yeah,
So,
that's interesting.
but yeah, I mean that's not the norm. Usually, it's the opposite. You know, I think I read somewhere that like Alice in Chains couldn't stand playing Man in the Box. You know, but they had to play it every show. But yeah, that's not that uncommon.
It's kind of funny to be. It's like work so hard to. It's like when you're a famous actor and you work so hard to get on movies and to get a camera in front of your face all the time, and then suddenly you're walking down the street and someone has a camera on you. It's like, yeah, they got the camera on you. They have their cell phone out because you worked so hard at wanting people to capture you, and now you're pushing them away. I actually stole that from Comedians in Cars. Like Seinfeld was with Zach Galifianakis, and they're walking down the street, and someone takes his phone out and records them walking. And Zach asks, I think he asks Jerry, like, doesn't this bother you? He's like, no, it doesn't bother me. Ignore him. Like, you worked so hard to get in front of a camera, and now suddenly you're trying to push them away. And Zach actually went like, huh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You can't have it both ways if you're a celebrity.
Yeah, what do you want?
Yeah, do you want to be rich and famous and have your privacy, or just not be rich and famous? You know, everything has consequences, I guess, or you know, it's costed. You know, that's part of the ticket price.
Yeah.
So, as a musician, we don't have that problem. You know, I kind of wonder, like sometimes, like you know, if you were to wear like, I don't know, progressive metal, like an Animals as Leaders or Periphery shirt, or play their music on a New York City street, like how many people would actually know what you were listening to? Whereas, you know, like they're you know, super famous in this world, you know, they're on top of it, top of that world. But like, what's the point where you kind of cross over the threshold and you know, that more like the average people on the street just kind of are able to recognize it, like Metallica, for example.
Oh yeah, Metallica is huge,
that's a huge example. I mean, you know, no band is at that level, but
yeah,
you know, where's the tipping point?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's small bands with a couple hundred followers playing at St. Vitus that are selling it out. Mm-hmm. You know, you can go see a couple of Long Island bands play there, and it's packed, and that's pretty cool. But if you were to play that outside, you know, I don't think, or wear a shirt.
It's an underground thing.
It's an underground thing. I don't think you're gonna. But you know, metal's funny. Like, have you ever been to a party and someone just decides to put metal on because they like metal, but maybe they've had a little too much to drink, so their decision making skills are a little out the window, and they think, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put Meshuggah on at the bar. Like I've definitely done that at those jukeboxes where you know, at like Effin' Groovin' when that used to be open, and we would put like Meshuggah on at the beer bar, and suddenly the vibe in the room is just killed. Like everyone's like, what the fuck is this? Is not the right setting. And almost every time, you know, the bar steps in and skips the next song. They're like, I don't care that someone just paid a dollar.
They axe it.
Yeah, they axe it. It's like, this is not the right energy. But yeah, metal's kind of funny like that, because you love it and you enjoy it, but it's not the kind of thing that you could put on at a party and expect everyone else to be like, yeah, what is this?
So few people listen to it.
It doesn't really work like that. You could put on heavy music like System of a Down or something, maybe. You could probably get away with, or like Audio Slave or Queens of the Stone Age. That's like, those work at a party, but as soon as you put that, the vocals don't even have anything to do with it. As soon as you put on that like pristine, heavily produced, compressed bass, guitar, drum, blasting snare drum. As soon as you put that on, it kills people's moods at parties.
Yeah. Jazz would probably do the same thing.
Jazz would probably do the exact same thing. Yeah.
But I think both of those styles of music have a few things in common. First of all, like, it's definitely an acquired taste. And, it's definitely a small but incredibly dedicated listening base. Like, both of those styles of music, like, I think people that listen to Meshuggah generally, they probably start at System of a Down, and they probably start at Audio Slave, and then kind of work their way up the ladder in terms of heaviness. I know that's how it was for me. I had to kind of ease into the screaming vocals, and I didn't just kind of dive into it. I started at like Metallica, and then that led me to like Korn and all that stuff, Pantera, and then I eased into the world. Whereas like just dropping somebody into the deep end like that is going to shock the shit out of them. They're like, what the hell is this?
What's funny for me, it was actually backwards. I like went kind of like deep end first and then made my way toward the shallow end. Like I only recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, started going through Korn's albums and getting familiar with them. I still have not really listened to much Metallica. And the prog stuff. If you said to me right now, I'll give you $1 million to name one Steve Vai song.
Yeah.
I can't name you a single Steve Vai song. I can't name you a single Joe Satriani song.
That's a different kind of prog.
Yeah, I'd never listened to it. For me, guitar was, I had a friend that gave me a guitar. It was Master of Puppets, Stairway to Heaven, some Jimi Hendrix.
The Guitar Center hits.
Yeah, like some stupid stuff that a guitar teacher at the local music shop taught me, probably like a Creed chord progression or something that. I think Papa Roach was in there. You remember? Last Resort.
And then Crazy Train.
Crazy Train, learning Randy Rhoads like guitar solos. Actually, so I guess there is a theme here a little bit. But then almost right away, Randy Rhoads, Ozzy, it went to Job for a Cowboy, Beneath the Massacre, Sleep Terror, Blotted Science, like the super heavy, super technical. I hate that word so much.
That's my least favorite word.
Such a stupid word.
Yeah.
The tech metal, technical metal.
I wish there was something.
The whole tone like that kind of tapping stuff. I loved it. But also at this exact same time was Ben Monder. So I was going to high school on the bus in the morning, listening to like a shuffled playlist of Beneath the Massacre, Blotted Silence, and Ben Monder.
Holy shit!
And that's people were like, "What the fuck is wrong with this kid?"
That's some contrast right there.
And I really wasn't. I went to school for jazz, but I wasn't really listening to, traditional, or even like modern. I wasn't really listening to modern jazz yet. I think Metheny came when I was in college. I was listening to more Metheny and stuff.
Although I could see Ben Monder being a bridge, because like some of those records, what was it, Hydra and I forget.
Oh yeah, those came later though. But for me, Oceana was high school.
Oh yeah, that's which ones are the ones with his
Jim Black?
Ted Poor? Oh, that's Jim Black. Yeah.
Ted Poor was Oceana.
Okay. Yeah, like some of those records are like really heavily through composed, and like I can almost picture like replacing his guitar with like an Axe Effects, and like that being some metal shit,
Oh yeah, totally. And Cynic came in at some point, I think in like early college. But yeah, then I kind of worked backwards from there. It was to the point where now I'm studying Charlie Parker for like the hardest I've ever studied Charlie Parker.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of fun. It's probably coming out like in my music too.
I hear it.
I think, I've heard that a few times now. People are like, you sound a little different, but you sound better, but you also sound different.
Get your bebop bag.
Yeah, getting like more into like not more into bebop, but honestly into bebop for the first time ever. Um, so yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still some level of a bridge there. Like I kind of did a similar thing where I worked my way backwards. I started with, when I was in high school, all I listened to, or early high school, all I listened to was metal of some sort. And I think the bridge for me was like Montevishnu Orchestra and like Tony Williams, but like the fusion Tony Williams era, like Lifetime. And then, because I could kind of relate to that a bit more. Dennis Chambers, I mentioned that because like I got into like all the drum virtuosos at the time, like I got a Dennis Chambers DVD or VHS at the time. And like, I was like, oh, who's he checking out? Oh, he mentions Billy Cobham and Tony Williams. So like, let me see what they did, and then that led me to Montevishnu Orchestra and Tony, and then like, what else did Tony do? Okay, he played with Miles. Let me see Miles' shit, and then checking out like the late 60s Miles Quintet, and then kind of backtracking to Charlie Parker, Max Roach era, because it was just like, if I jumped right into the bop thing, I'd be like, man, like I can't, this recording sounds old, and you can't really hear the drums on those, on those early Parker recordings, like in the 40s. You just hear like a bass drum, like kind of a, like a sizzle of a cymbal and like a bass drum every now and then. It's hard to get a lot of definition. Yeah, this is, kind of bridging into it. That's one thing with my students I find that's like really a problem nowadays, is like that sense of curiosity that we were just talking about. Like, oh, let me check out who these people checked out.
You say that's a good thing to have?
Yeah, that curiosity for sure. I mean, like, I don't know, I'll say like what I was just talking about, like listening to Dennis Chambers and then finding out he listened to Tony Williams, and Tony Williams' favorite drummer was Max Roach, and then also talking about Elvin Jones, and then Elvin was coming from Art Blakey, and just kind of just like checking out the lineage and checking out who my favorite drummers checked out. And like just doing, nobody told me to do that. That's just what I wanted to do. I wanted to like get to the bottom of all this stuff, and I wanted to find more music like the music that I liked. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole. But I find nowadays that's rare. And I think maybe that goes back to the TikTok, Instagram thing, the social media thing that we were talking about. Rather than digging, people are just kind of going on a feed and just going to the next video, right? Like, instead of like, oh, let me check out this drummer and check out, or the guitar player, and let me check out who they're into, they just scroll down, keep scrolling. And then you get 30-second clips after 30-second clips, rather than really diving deep into this material, Yeah, I'm like kind of shocked when I play like a Billy Cobham record, or even like somebody that's like a newer drummer, like playing some Mark Juliana for somebody or whatever, and then sometimes they're just like like kind of dead face, like they just don't. I'm like, okay, so what do you think about it? It doesn't really, I mean, I can understand if it's over their head. I'm kind of talking about like fairly advanced high school students,
Yeah, if I were to be able to give myself advice like 10 years ago, I would say, like, try to fall in love with what you're listening to. Like, Apple, especially now, Apple Music and Spotify, you could blow up your song list in 5 minutes. You could have like 100 albums that you need to listen to. But there was something to be said for going to the store at one point and getting a CD and listening to that CD, and buying another CD would cost another $10, and you didn't have the $10, so you ended up just listening to this CD over and over and over again. And at a certain point, you learned every lick, every solo, all the nuances about it. That to me is the way music is supposed to be listened to. So I actually did an exercise this month. I've only been listening, like when I am listening to music, not when I'm, putting on something just for background noise. Like when it's time for me to actively listen, or if I'm in the car driving somewhere. I've actually been listening to the same record over and over again.
Nice. What's the record?
I've been listening to Kreisberg's Capturing Spirits, his live album.
Oh, cool.
I think it's his most recent one. Just over and over again, because it's, I think part of me wants to put on something and, hit the shuffle button on my Apple Music and just listen to whatever comes next and hop through, all these things. But I really tried to do this exercise this month where I really, really get to know a record, and it's been really awesome. And it's something, I'll hang it up in a couple of days.
It's funny that you call that an exercise, because
it is kind of funny.
Yeah,
but it kind of felt like it took a little. It took a little bit of effort.
It does take effort. Yeah, like for me, it shouldn't really be an exercise, but I can understand just the our short attention spans, myself included. Like you have to really,
It does, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do it when I have all this other music at my disposal. It's a lot easier if I could go back to a world where CDs were my only option. It might be easier to listen to the same thing over and over again because I wouldn't have that many physical copies of things on me.
That's the good thing about vinyl, I have to say. It got pretty heavy into vinyl during the pandemic and even a little bit before, but I did that recently with Miles Davis, My Funny Valentine. I just left it on the record player. So if it's physically on the record player, it's easier.
Yeah, same idea, same exact idea. It's just a little bit harder to execute when it's coming from your phone and you have to go to it. But yeah, totally. Like I definitely picked up records as a method of forcing myself to hone in on that record.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, that record, it wasn't an intentional thing. It's just like kept wanting to listen to it, because it's just so many things happening. And, but yeah, if that was an MP3 form, that would be a lot harder.
So it's tricky. Yeah.
It's a new thing.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Cool.
So let's recap. We know nothing about grants. We know nothing about we have no idea how musicians make money on tour. So we've been completely unhelpful.
Yeah, we know nothing. Don't listen to us.
Yeah.
I guess we're just asking questions in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Like I want to know the answers to those things. I'm just kind of,
this
maybe
is not
somebody that's listening will know. They could.
Hey, please, guest. If any of you 4 people listening know, let us know if you have any information on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Start a survey.
Yeah.
Cool,
you got any last words? Well, I just gave a piece of advice. It was try to like, fall in love sounds cheesy, but I'm going to say it again. Try to fall in love with an album. Like really get to know an album. Even kind of do the dorky historical research on something. Like, learning standards again it's been more interesting for some reason. Maybe it's because I'm getting old. Like learning what play or movie the song is from. Like really enjoy this stuff because it's not always just about all the notes. So that's my advice. Just kind of really fall in love with an album or a tune.
Yeah, I would say while doing that, really, it's basically the same thing, but I would really think about what music really genuinely speaks to you and what doesn't. Like sometimes, I don't know, I think that there's a lot of, at least in a jazz pedagogy, the world of jazz pedagogy or whatever, is like they really train you to say like, oh, well, you should listen to this, and this is like the real shit. But not everything is going to speak to you very strongly, so maybe somebody who's really into Charlie Parker and maybe they're still into Red Hot Chili Peppers or Meshuggah or whatever. I think that there's a bit of pressure to kind of abandon the stuff that you grew up on. You know, like I've heard this from a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, I used to listen to metal, but I don't anymore. You know, I'm like kind of past that. You know, so like, well, that's going to be part of you. You know, that's always.
Yeah. Look, I was told 1,000 times in school to go back and listen to Charlie Christian. I've tried listening to Charlie Christian a bunch. I don't like Charlie Christian.
Yeah,
I don't like it. You know, and it is what it is.
Yeah, but I think there's a pressure. It's like, oh, you don't like Charlie Christian? Like, what do you know? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know, where it's, you know, like really, really just thinking about what really speaks to you and kind of exploring that. I think like the best musicians are the most like themselves, you know, the most in touch with, you know, themselves as, you know, what they really like and, you know, what really speaks to them. And then hopefully that comes out and they're playing. So, yeah, I guess advice to my younger self, like you said. But
yeah, cool. I like that. I like that advice.
Cool.
All right, man. Well,
all right. I'll catch you later.